welcome to another episode of the Fanzone Podcast, your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you're listening to this. For those of you watching live on YouTube, good evening. Of course, tonight is episode 34 of the preview, joined by, some may say, including myself, EFL royalty in Ed Walker. Ed, good evening.
Good evening, Cole. That's far too kind. I don't agree with that myself, but so be it.
Yeah, let's roll with it. Of course, Ed is from many of EFL contents, but also, of course, his recent and most noticeable venture, the Brewers Babble. It's a new one, isn't it, Ed?
It is. We've launched it for the new season, part of a number of new initiatives that come about with this new look football club. So we record on Thursdays for Saturday submission early morning, something to dig into as you make your way up to the game or down to the game, whenever that is. Not been the best start to it. We've had not little to really shout about at the minute, but all the same, we look to get on a guest every single week as well. So chance to talk about their Burton story, their Burton history, and we've had a couple of exclusive guests as well. So our very first episode was Mark Robinson, the head coach. And we had our number 9, Danilo Orsi, on a couple of weeks ago, which is really good. Got a chance to run through his career and a really fascinating story of coming up from the depths of non-league up to League One level.
Fantastic. So any Bolton fans interested in the broader EFL and League One, of course, then be sure to check out Brewers Babble. I'm sure there'll be plenty of good stuff on there. Ben, how are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm good. I've had a nice detox on Bolton, as I was telling the lads before. I think it was about an hour after the horrible Aston Villa under 21s game, which we're not getting into that. I muted hashtag BWFC, and it's been one of the best weeks on Twitter I've had, to be honest. So yeah, but it is good to be back. Obviously there's the elephant in the room with Ian Everett's ban, which got announced sometime in the last week or so. 3-game ban with a hefty fine, I'd say. I'm going to get into it, but I think he's got off quite lightly from past sort of instances. Everyone was going about Alan Pardew's head clash a few years ago. I think he got 7 games for it. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how that pans out. I know Colin's got his thoughts.
I never know how you do that with bans anyway. It seems to be just incident on incident. There doesn't seem to be actual rules anywhere about what denotes 3 matches, what denotes 5, for instance. They just seem to make it up as they go along.
Yeah, with plenty of other things as well. It's not the first time that we had that reaction with regards to the EFL, is it really? Or is it the FA? God, it's long, both of us each other. Good evening to everybody who's joined us so far in the chat. You absolute superstars, including, of course, channel members, David, Brandon. Good evening to you both as well. Leslie said on Ian Everett that the ban should have been more. As Ben said earlier, we'll get into that shortly. I'm sure you'll all have your opinions on that. Please do get your comments into the chat, and I'll ensure that we bring them to view, and we'll have a discussion around your thoughts and opinions as well. But yeah, without further ado, I would say we'd have a little chat with Ed about Burton's season so far. So I think it's safe to say, Ed, that Burton's start to the season hasn't been the best. Of course, yet to pick up the W, as the kids say these days. Do you mind having a little think about your recent and stretching back, I guess, to the start of the season, and just tell us how it's been so far this season?
Well, I suppose we can stretch it back even further, can't we? Because it probably goes back to sort of around June time. We've had the most significant summer at the club for about 30 years with a change of ownership. It's been Ben Robinson at the helm since 1995, local man, chairman, done sensational work when you think back. We were a 6th-tier outfit at the time, what was the Northern Premier League at the time before the National League North existed. Took us as high as the Championship, spent 2 years in there, taking us to League Cup semi-final, Dynasty Cup runs, brief runs. Real success with hiring managers and just keeping the club running really steady despite really achieving over the odds over all the years. Stepped aside. He was approaching 80 years old. He always said it was time for him to move on, to hand the reins on to someone else. And we've been taken over by what are called NFG, the Nordic Football Group. So this is a group of people from all across the Nordic region. So Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, Finland, all the lot. People with people with a real strong passion for football, who are keen to get themselves invested into a club within the game. I think it was originally meant to be Shrewsbury they were looking at, but that broke down.
Did hear that, yeah.
Moved across. Yeah. I did hear that. I remember hearing that sort of around full February time. I think it would have been quite at the start of the year. Moved on instead to another Midlands club in Burton, and they've had a really notable impact already. So it's been fronted by four main guys who have come into the club in directors' roles. One of them is chairman, one of them is deputy chairman, one of them as a sporting director, which is a role Burton had not had before, someone in charge of transfers as opposed to the manager, and then a head of communications was the other one that comes to mind there. They've come in backed by a large group of investors who have a fair little bit of money behind them. So Burton for all these years have been a club that have had to really get by to be competitive in this league, make use of free transfers, loan signings, pick up some gems really to stay competitive. This summer, they've been able to spend not a extensional amount of money. We're not talking Birmingham levels here, like Birmingham or something else with the money they've spent this year, and indeed some other clubs, but they have invested a little bit of money into some players, and it's been a lot of players, and that's probably been the most notable thing about Burton so far. We've signed 23 players over the summer, which is the British record for signings in the summer window. So if you remember Nottingham Forest when they came up into the Premier League and signed all those tons of players, they signed 21. We signed 2 more than them. So it's been one of the biggest squad overhaul, the biggest squad overhaul in the history of British football we've found. And well, I think it's probably going as most neutrals would have expected it to. We don't really look settled yet. It started out quite fun. We had 2 chaotic opening games against Lincoln and Mansfield where we scored 5 goals and conceded 6, so a 3-2 and a 3-3 draw, followed up by 2-0 nils, where you're not quite sure what team you're actually looking at now. And having started the period just after the September break with 0 wins, 4 draws, 1 defeats, it's gone downhill since. And so now what we find ourselves is in a sticky situation down the bottom, still quite early in the season, I would say. We haven't even played 10 games yet because we have both our international breaks called off. So we're still on 9 matches at the moment. But we're sat without a win without anything in the win column at the minute. And it's testing the patience of fans is the best way I can summarize it. We were always told from the start it was going to need patience because there's been so much change at this club. But I do think there are some who thought we were going to do more than we've currently done the minutes, and it's concerning with you about what could potentially still be coming.
Yeah, we touched upon, well, I touched upon, should I say, and asked you the question before we went live with regards to the fans. Of course, Burton's stadium, what is it, to hold just shy of 7,000? So you're not getting the biggest crowds in the world anyway. But how has this indifferent start to the season affected the fan base in terms of fans through the door? Because that's important, especially obviously as a new ownership group. Obviously, they want to get fans through the door, don't they? And people paying tickets, which is obviously really important at this level. Has it affected you guys a lot in that respect? Or is it
I think if this was still the previous club, it would probably be lower than it is. Part of the reason for that is because NFG, whilst things on the pitch are not working great at the minute, everything they've done off the pitch that's in their control, they've been smashing it so far. There's been so many great new initiatives launched just to try and get people a lot more invested into Burton now as a club. Because you guys as Bolton fans will know your location makes it quite challenging for you. You've got such big clubs in the area around you. We've got Derby up the road. We've got Nottingham up the road. We've got Stoke in the same county. Birmingham's the other direction. So it's always been quite hard as a still quite a young side. I think it's only our 15th, 16th year in the Football League anyway, compared to sides that have been in here for 100 years plus. Trying to build that fan base, particularly that local fan base, has always been a challenge. And there's been such a focus on creating a match day that's seen as a bit of a day out for families, encouraging them to come. So we've organised the launch of a fan zone finally outside of our North Stand, something to actually get people to congregate in before they actually go into the stadium themselves. There's new initiatives launched. There's a sort of after party in the North Stand that's held after games as well for people to stay around more. There's general encouragement to really try and work on the atmosphere, particularly in our West Stand behind our goal, which is normally where our most vocal fans will go, trying to encourage the West Stand to be a lot more active. So we've had the launch of a supporters group called the Brewers Union. They've been working really hard there. A few older guys and a few younger guys collaborating together to get the atmosphere, trying to build up a lot more in that stadium, just trying to encourage people to stay put a bit more and get more people on the road and at home games. And I think you are starting to see that because we've had a winless start to the season. I'd still say the crowds are probably a bit more than I thought they would be at this stage. So I think they're hanging in there, to bit of a lease still.
That's good. I suppose one finger that will get pointed, I suppose, will be at Mark Robinson. Obviously, it's not his first venture into management. Obviously, I know he's at Wimbledon, wasn't he, prior to you guys. Could it be that the trigger will get pulled and obviously, that the end could be close for him?
I would be surprised that it was pulled now, because this guy has been brought in as Energy's man to be the guy to implement a complete change of style. We've not just changed the club, we've changed the team. We had 4 years of playing. Well, you guys will have seen it when we went to the U-Bowl. We've had 4 years of playing really, really dire, unattractive football. Mark Robinson has been taken out of a role at Chelsea. That's his boyhood club, by the way. It's basically one of his dream roles. Encouraged to come away, having been based in London all his life, to come up to the Midlands, an area of the country he's not been in before, to come and get involved in this project and implement a style of play which unanimously agreed is much more attractive. It just has teething problems still. Errors in possession, errors out of possession that need to be sussed out and get that working. I'm a little bit wary that there are some people still pointing to the fact that he has got quite a long winless run in this league, which just stretched back to his time at Wimbledon, which I think is a bit harsh because he had such a long break between the two.
Yeah.
But it's football fans being football fans, isn't it? They do like pointing out the negatives over the positives first of all. So I think there's still plenty of belief, certainly internally, for Robinson, that it can come good. It just needs to start happening quickly for him. And he's had a massive group of players, as we'll say, complete change of style, complete new football club. I think if NSG pulled the trigger quite early, it would set quite a bad tone for them, really, that they're not the kind of patient guys that people want them to be.
That's the thing. Once you've brought in your own manager and you've backed him and you've signed however many players and spent a little bit of money, like Burton don't usually do, it's one of them. It's going to take time. It's just whether that time is in 25 games when the season is already basically gone. Like it's the fine line between waiting long enough for it to bear fruit and you actually staying in League One. It's such a hard balance to strike.
Yeah, and I think that's where the anxiety comes. I think that's where the anxiety comes, Ben, as well, because we've had 4 years of being down the bottom of this league now. 3 of the last 4 years have been relegation battles, which we've always got out of, but it's always almost been a slow start, really poor, having to look upwards, trying to catch up to people. And whilst this is a completely new club, I think people still, as a fan base, have that mindset that we are just destined to always kind of circle this drain. And that's the worry. I think we've had 4 years as a fan base of kind of thinking, I don't know where the next win's coming from. It's difficult to maintain a lot of confidence when you've been suffering losing records every single year and having negative goal difference every single year. And this feels the same to some people, even though I don't think it should be, because it's a completely new club and a completely new team and a completely new backroom staff. But people just want to have some reassurance that things can come good. And there's a split at the minute, I think, between people who are still trying to hold strong, maintaining belief that this will sort itself out. And I think over the last 2 weeks, you've certainly seen the cracks of others who are thinking, I'm not convinced this is going to change.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Channel member David has asked, how much money did Burton spend, Ed?
Well, I can't give the exact amount because classic Burton Albion, we use undisclosed fees for everything. You never hear the exact amount. I know that it's a lot more than we was generally spend. The big purchase has been Terence Van Kooten, centre-back, getting over from Stevenage. Transfer marks, we've got that in the region of about 500,000, which would make him one of our most expensive signings ever. I'm inclined to believe that's a genuine case. It was described as a substantial undisclosed fee by Stevenage. It was very good profit for them out of a player they'd had for a number of years and developed well. So he's the big purchase. I'm not going to give an exact estimate because I don't want to get the figure wrong, but it would be not massive compared to others in League One, but certainly compared to what Burton generally spend, it's a notable amount, I would say.
David Jones has said any attendance with a capacity of 7,000 will struggle in League One. I think that's a fair comment, David. Yep. Although Wigan get 7,000 and they do all right, don't they? So it's not necessarily true, is it?
Well, this is part of the strategy for us because you're right. It is difficult to maintain when your attendance is not even that, probably about half of that, truthfully. 7,000 is what it can hold. The idea of this club is to become a selling club, which I think is the best strategy we have, that we buy these players in. It's part of the reason we've had this summer. Among these 23 signings are numerous players in their early 20s, teenage years on long-term contracts. The idea that they're going to come in, have a few years, develop, get sold onto the plot, and then we work our way up from there. I think there's a little bit of inspiration with the kind of model that Brentford and Brighton are putting. Brentford and Brighton do it exceptionally, but it's that kind of influence that they've got, and it's the way Burton are going to make themselves a lot more competitive in this division compared to what they have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, fingers crossed. I hope you stick with him because, like you say, he's signed into this project, hasn't he? And it's an investment in it by the ownership group to bring him in from Chelsea, and obviously look to build it for you. So, fingers crossed. And sometimes it's maybe a case of one step back to go two forward. Who knows? If obviously your season doesn't really go according to plan. But I mean, I'll reserve judgment until after Saturday because I'm convinced that there are plenty of other poor teams in this division. You're going to be likely competing with to stay in it. Let's get our thinking caps on, gentlemen, and have a little think about the current injury situation of both clubs. So, of course, we are just about coming out, I think, of our injury situation. Would you say, Ben? Although last night we got an injury to Owen Toll.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever we seem to be coming out, there always seems to be a fresh one on the horizon. So obviously Toll went off at half-time yesterday in Northern Ireland's game. He got concussion, so not a serious one, we hope anyway. Might be a doubt for Saturday, maybe for Tuesday, but it's not a long-term injury. But in terms of players coming back, we've heard Gethin Jones is back available for this weekend. Quite timely if Toll's not fit. Carlos Mendes Gomez is back on the grass and back in training. And in terms of, I think that was before the Shrewsbury game.
Think,
sure. Yeah.
And the tricky thing is with this, Ed, is generally we do the preview shows on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that, the press conference.
This is my fault because all of Burton would be the same. I'd have Team New Season Burton if this was on a Thursday as well.
So there's an element of us kind of scratching around the surface a little bit and kind of understanding kind of what we've been told previously. But yeah, you're right. Gethin's back, isn't he? Carlos Mendes Gomez, I think he's actually back, in contention.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if they chuck him in anytime very soon because, it's been a long layoff since.
I think we all just want to know, is Victor going to play? I think that's all we're bothered about.
Provided you don't have a sneezing fit, he'll be all right.
Okay.
Yeah. Would not surprise me if we get another random injury like that. But yeah, Clyde Lawless was the other one that has obviously been back on the bench for the last couple of league games, has not been on the pitch, but then started the game against the Villa's kids, didn't he? Don't think he quite did much to impress. I don't think anyone did. But yeah, he's back in the squad. Forrester has been named by David. God knows what's happened to him, mate. I think he's just forever injured, isn't he? But yeah, that's basically where we're up to. I think it's looking a lot better on the injury list, but we'll see what's around the corner. Ed, what about Burton?
Here's the problem: we've had 2 weeks without games, so we've not heard anything. This is one of the things I think we're also trying to cling to. We haven't got everyone yet. We haven't seen every single one of these signings yet. You start the season, I think we had 10 players missing to the start of the campaign. They've gradually been coming back with a couple also going. The number one notable absence at the minute is Billy Bowden, who has started the season so well. Got a goal on open day, got a brace against Mansfield Town. Just that experience he's got, that game-changing ability on his left foot particularly. He's one that Robinson highlighted right from the start as someone who could just turn a game on its head. I mean, in pre-season, he scored them halfway against Morecambe. He just pulled out of the bag because he's just got that in him. And he picked up an injury in the last game of August against Northampton, and we haven't seen him since. Maybe he's back for this. I can't say for certain. I hope it would be at the very least November time. We really are wanting to have him back to play as one of our 2-10s behind the striker. So we'll see whenever that is. We got Van Kooten suspended for this game. He got a late red card against Bristol Rovers last time out, which feels like longer than 2 weeks. Feels like we've had out a game for about a month because of this international break, but we're back now playing.
Ben seemed pretty pleased with that. Obviously, I presume he's a decent player for you because I think Ben's still clinging on to the hope that Everett sticks around for longer and we pick up a scabby result against Burton this coming Saturday. Is he an important player for you, Ed?
I would have said so. It's a bit interesting because we've gone with a little shift of shape the last couple of games. We were playing 3-4-2-1 to start, and last couple of games Robinson's gone to change of a 4-2-3-1, which has brought Alex Bannon signing in from Queen's Park back into defence. He'd been injured at the start of the season, but he seemed to get back up to speed to play alongside Ryan Sweeney in centre. So Van Koen actually came off on the bench and then got sent off with basically a last man challenge. So I think he's missing for, I think it might be 3 games, not entirely sure. We've seen Charlie Webster, one of our impact notable signings from Chelsea in the summer, attacking midfielder, coming back. So he's slowly getting back up to speed. And then I would say we're still missing Jack Hazelhurst, non-league signing from Chorley. We haven't seen a minute of yet. He's a very technical attacking midfielder. We're still waiting to see. Julian Larson, left-sided forward from Nottingham Forest.
Because you have signed a lot of players, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to go through the list in my head. I think other than that, it's the idea is that when everyone's around, there's 2 players to a position, which is great, but we haven't got that yet. So I'd imagine he wants that selection headache, Robbo, I'd imagine. I don't think he's quite got it yet.
That Billy Borden, is he at Oxford?
He was at Oxford last year. Yeah, he's been there for a few years.
Scored 2 against us a couple of years ago at Oxford. I remember a really good free kick and then 1 from range.
Excellent.
Really good player. I was just saying, I was looking through your transfer business, and I mean, when it was happening in the summer, I was pretty impressed by like half the names. Like Billy Bowden, Daniel Orsi, Elliot Watt, Van Kooten, like a lot of players that have done it in League 2 and ready to step up. And it's one of them. I think it's. I know I've been over it, but I think it's one of them. It's going to take time. He's not best team yet. It's loads of new players in. It's players that look decent for the level for me. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's the one. I think some are maybe critical that there's quite a lot who haven't tasted League One before. Quite a number who come up a level. I think Elliot Watt is one of the divided opinion ones at the minute because he has an exceptional passing range, but his ball retention isn't that great. He does try to pull these risky first-time passes that can pay off and create good chances, but they often do result in a lot of possession when they don't work, and that divides an opinion. People would like to see him retain the ball a bit better than he does, so he splits a bit of opinion. Danilo Orsi has not played League One level before. I think he's done quite decent. I think he's on to 3 goals now. They've been largely consolation goals so far, but your number 9 is still showing him output, which is quite handy because this time last year our number 1 was Cole Stockton and he was terrible. That we don't have a particularly great history with number 9, so quite happy to have someone who seems to be handling this quite well. I think Adoka Godwin-Valith is probably my favourite at the minute, playing a right wing back, very dynamic, getting very high, trying to be picked out with passes in behind the back line. Seems to be Nick Koto, our big American right back that's been picked out in the last couple of games. I quite like to see Godwin-Valith back into this because I think he could be handy.
We've had a comment from our friend Jake Tong, Ed, who's stated Burton just need to get that first win under the belt. The longer it goes on, the more unrest there will be. He thinks that they'll struggle this weekend, though, personally. It's
quite nice, the Jake. I'll take that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Quite kind.
Some Mickey taking, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment, though, to be fair. You probably just do need that 1 win. But hopefully it won't come this weekend against us.
Well, if it doesn't come against you, it needs to come next week against Cambridge. That's the one people are eyeing up at the minute. Cambridge away, 26th of October. That's
it. You got to try and beat the teams around you, don't you? That's all what it's all about. Channel member David has also mentioned that Baxter will be back as well. Just to highlight that bit. Ben?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's one I missed. Yeah, I knew I was missing someone. Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah, you say that, but I still think that Luke Sape was a decent.
He is, yeah. I think he's a decent League One keeper, but Baxter's one of the best in the league. We need him back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For any Burton fans that are listening to this, either on your way up to the Reebok or currently watching it live, we'll just tell you where you can get a cheeky little beverage. Personally, not too fussed about this type of thing, Ed, but people are these days for some reason. Attendance.
Well, we are called the Brewers, Cole.
Yeah, well,
it's the heritage of the town. We take pride in
it. What I was going to ask is in terms of attendance, are you going to have many Burton fans travelling up to the Reebok this weekend for a beer?
I don't think we'd expect many, would we? It's one of those, isn't it? We played you quite a lot over the last few years, generally out of form. Bolton has cut away, has kind of felt like a fixture for us the last 2 years. You just kind of got to get through. And I know it's quite interesting because I know we've been kind of a name as a club that kind of made your fans sick in the mouth. Because let's be honest, we've gone to the U-Bowl the last 2 years and not played at all. the first couple of times it was working and then it stopped working altogether. The last couple of times it's really not been the case, and you've been able to grind us down. I don't know if we'll go on to this, but we will be different this time. Mark Robinson plays a completely different way. We're going to try and take the game to you, try and work it a bit more, which will probably please you a lot, but worries me a little bit because I think we're playing to your strengths a bit more by doing that. You kind of want an open, more expansive team to come at us, and we can get overloaded at the back post, so that makes me a little bit anxious to your wing backs.
Yeah, you're right. When teams come out and try and play against us, as long as they're not, no offense, a top quality team, as in like a Birmingham, I imagine they will. It does kind of suit us. It brings us back to the Reading game where they were like free flowing attacking, but had nothing at the back. It's when teams like Burton have done in the past. I mean, a couple of times you come to the Uniball and just been incredibly stubborn.
I remember the 0-0 a couple of years ago under Hasselbank.
Oh my God.
I remember that. That one comes to mind very vividly.
The 0-0 and then the 1-1 where we scored 97th minute. I think John Daly Bodvarsson. They're two of the most frustrating games of football I've ever watched in my life. Yeah. And fair play. You got a point. You got 2 points out of it.
No, so, that one, last one, you're thinking of was a 2-1 loss. Actually, I remember that quite vividly.
Was it? Did we win it?
Tuesday night, we were winning till like the 87th minute, and then I think you equalised. You equalised with a shot. It was a launch clearance from your goalkeeper that went all the way to your guy, just snuck it on the keeper. And then Bodvarsson scored in stoppage time and threw his shirt into the crowd.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. That hurt, that one. That was painful.
Yeah, I bet it did. Yeah. But yeah, we hadn't
lost to you until that point. The unbeaten record had gone. I was gutted.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a tricky fixture for us. But yeah, if you're going to play a different way, I mean, it should be an entertaining game. Two teams that are going to try and attack each other.
I think it comes down to how good our pressing game is, which I haven't seen so much yet. I know you guys. You don't want to be bringing it up, but the Huddersfield game is the one that comes to mind. You guys have a certain way and you will stick to it, try to play that way. If we get a good pressing game right, I think we can win the ball too high, but I've not really seen us do that yet. So I'm keen to see if we can implement that because that could be a key to winning it.
It is funny you say that because since the Huddersfield game, we've not played out the back, but we've been a bit more less resistant to going long when we need to. I think that was a kind of, that fourth goal going viral might have been the best thing that's happened to us.
Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind.
Look, it's bordering on madness when you're insisting on doing it all the time when you don't need to. It's been like I can imagine. Well, I remember in the Crawley game and the Northampton game, the 2 away games, we went long quite a bit longer than we usually would, and it's worked out so far. So let's see if it continues that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to confidence. The way we play, when bereft of confidence, they panic and they make mistakes like a lot of teams do. Playing out from the back, it takes a lot of kahuna's done it. So naturally, then the default to that is to launch balls into the channel. But it has been mentioned by David Jones, who's a regular on the preview and our post match reaction shows, to just press us and then we'll cave in like a sinkhole. Only time will tell. But in terms of having a drink for the Burton fans, I think Leslie said there are about a couple of hundred apparently that are making the journey. Middlebrook is a bit of a go-to, I guess, if you want a pint, providing that you've not got your Stone Island on and you're looking for trouble. You've got to get a pint in one of the
Don't think we're that kind of club, to be honest, Cole.
Yeah, I don't think you are. No, didn't want to tarnish you with that brush. But the go-to is the Beehive, of course, at the top of the roundabout for any Burton fans listening. That tends to be the place where most of them go. We do have a fan zone like yourselves, Ed, but unfortunately it is for home fans only. So don't be trying to get in there, Burton fans, because you won't be allowed in because you have to show your ticket. There is a news story that we want to touch upon, which we will do before, I reckon, the score prediction. What do you reckon, Ben?
Yeah, go for it.
So, of course, Ian Evatt, over to you, Ben.
Yeah, he's, as I said before, the verdict came out about his ban being 3 games. So he's going to miss the Burton home game, Birmingham away, and Stockport. Is it? Not Stockport.
Yeah. Is it Stockport?
I think it's Peterborough home. Peterborough home, yeah. Yeah, it's massive. It's one of them. We all knew it was going to happen. 5 minutes after we saw it, we all thought it was going to be longer, to be honest. As Ed said, it kind of seems to be a time-by-time basis to kind of make up the verdicts at the time. I don't know. There's no kind of rule stating if you go head-to-head with an opposition player.
No, I don't know what a 3-game headbutt looks like compared to a 4-game headbutt. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, just get everyone's thoughts in the comments. I mean, obviously, it's not a great look. It's not a good look for the club. It's not the first time he's got in trouble with, sort of the officials. It's the first time he's got in trouble with another player. Yeah, it's one of them that he said in the summer that he was going to try and cut back on letting his emotions boil over. And 9 games in, he's let himself down. And
it's not just let himself down, though, has he, Ben? He's let the club down.
He's not. He's let the club down. Yeah, of course he has.
Massively.
But in terms of promising to himself that he's not going to let that type of thing happen again, and it has.
I'm keen to get your thoughts, Ed, from the outside looking in. Obviously, like I said to you before, you are, I'll say, somewhat EFL royalty when it comes to the podcast world. Obviously, you've got a good understanding of Ian Evatt and kind of his mannerisms and the way he goes about things. What are your thoughts on him, where we are at the moment, and kind of how you see the situation at present?
I'm kind of a little bit sad by the situation because I, for quite a while, had this opinion that Ian Evatt could be a bit like what Nathan Jones was at Luton and what Mark Robbins was at Coventry, as someone who took you guys from the basement division of the Football League up to the second division, to the Championship, where you guys aspire to be for a long time now. And it was all working so wonderfully at the start. That season, promoted behind closed doors, up in League Two, just single year there. Came into League One that first year where you kind of consolidated place, which I thought was fine. It'd be progression on from there. And it's felt like for these last 3 years, the aspiration has, of course, been trying to get into the Championship, coming close with a couple of playoff campaigns. Last year, of course, the final. I don't really put that down to him. I just think Oxford was superb on the day and Bolton had no answer to it. I just think that was the superior side that actually managed to win the day. And we kind of go into this year, and I'm kind of thinking again, is this the one they can maybe go and kick on? And I was kind of hopeful they could be potentially the team behind Birmingham this year that takes second spot. And it feels very fractious at the minute, this relationship. I think it's a combination of a little bit of impatience with the fans, that desire to get up to League One doesn't feel like it's happening. You feel like you're kind of stagnating in this division, not compared to what you want to relative to expectations. And then Ian Evatt just can't seem to just keep his mouth shut. I've seen some of the comments that have been said post games. I can't remember the exact game it was, but talking about, I think he tried to claim that like all that Bolton have happened now is because of me, trying to remind people of what he's done before. That kind of comments that comes to mind. I can't remember what the exact game was from with that. It feels, it's quite easy to say now, but it feels like a relationship that could be broken by the end of the season. And it's feeling at the minute like, as Bolton continue to languish in, 14th place at the minute, which is very low for Bolton compared to their expectations, it doesn't feel like Everton's going to be here at the end of the season the way it's just feeling at the moment.
Yeah, things can change very quickly. We are 14th at the moment, and I think, what are we, 3 points out of the top 6? Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, 3 off the top 6, about 5 off second, I think it is. Yeah, it's early days, isn't it? The league's so close, but yeah, there's no getting away from it. It's not been a good enough start.
No, not at all. T-flop, I can't get used to that, I'll be honest with you. Host Jake has had his two penneth and said that he's a prat, chaps. There's no other way around it.
So is he.
Well, yeah, that's also true. Maybe a prat knows a prat. So,
exactly.
Who knows? No, but listen, he's let himself down, like Ben said already, and he's let the club down. More importantly, I think, in my opinion, and it could very well cost him his job, because if he's, not on the touchline against, with all due respect, probably wouldn't matter as much against Burton than it would do a Birmingham or a Peterborough, possibly on the face of it. But if we somehow drop points against you guys at the weekend and then go on to lose against Birmingham, then that'll probably be curtains, I think. I don't know whether you agree with that, Ben.
Yeah, the thing is that's the thing. As I said before, we've seen him do, not this type of stuff before, but, lose his head before. And while everything, while we're playing well, while everything's rosy on the pitch, you can kind of ignore it and shove it to the side and go, oh, it's all right. Like, we're winning. It doesn't matter. We're top of the league. But yeah, when the results aren't coming, it's just another stick to beat him with, isn't it? So yeah, look, the only way he can regain the faith is to start winning football matches quickly and move up the table. Well,
to his advantage, 2 of our better players in Dion Charles and Josh Sheehan have had 2 belting international breaks or games. Of course, Dion was on fire last night, didn't score, but played very well for Northern Ireland as they triumphed 5-0. And of course, Josh Sheehan played all of Wales's was it a victory? Yeah, they won, didn't they?
Yeah, they won against Montenegro. Yep.
Montenegro, and he played the whole game and got man of the match. So at least he's getting players coming back to him that are in form, which is not going to do him any harm whatsoever, I wouldn't have thought. The players are capable. I have no doubt about that. My question marks are whether that man can take us forward. So with all that positivity, let's have a little bit of a prediction, shall we? I know you don't do predictions, or you don't do them very well, Ed. I think you said before we went live. So I'll leave you till last. I will go 2-1 Bolton. I think we'll just about win. But I think you'll give us a game because, yeah, I think it'll have an effect in not being on the touchline. Ben, your prediction, please, pal.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I just saw David's put in the chat the other day, just before, that we have one home win in 790 minutes against Burton, which is awful. Because I remember even in the Championship, you're a bit of a bogey team for us. And then, obviously, the last few seasons, we've really struggled. And I'm saying, I would have said the Burton of old would have given us a really, really horrible game on Saturday.
Have you played Mansfield yet with Clough?
Yeah, in the cup.
You have played
in the cup, yeah. But yeah, as I said, it reminds me of what I think the Reading game was. A kind of a team coming out and going to attack us. They're not going to be afraid to press us, but leave the back door open. That's what I'm hoping anyway. And someone said before, how are you like at set pieces now, Ed? Just as a little quick one.
Not as good as before. We used to be a big team that relied on them, and now we can't seem to really handle them. Corners make me quite anxious. Especially now Van Couten's not going to be available to be in the back line. It's going to be Sweeney back there. Also, we'll have to come back to help. And it's if you put it right in the mixer, I think there's a chance that we could drop you away with a second loose ball. Yeah.
Well, that's another one of our biggest weaknesses over the last couple of years. And yourselves have exploited it on a number of times. I remember that away game. Yeah. And we're 3-0 down after about 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
So, look, if this was a Burton a couple of years ago, I'd have said it would have been a horrible game at the worst time, especially with Everton on the sidelines. But I'm confident that it's going to be one where you come at us. And if we start strong like we should do, if we go a couple of goals up, I think it might get out of control. But hold the horses. I'm going to go 3-1.
Go on then, Ed. Give us your lowdown.
This is one of those classic previews where neither fan base really believes they're going to win it.
Yeah.
Because there's a negative feeling I'm getting with you guys, the Bolton at the mid, and there's a negative feeling with Burton ourselves. The minimum I hope is that it's just a bit more enjoyable because we've generally really bored you guys. And to be fair, it's bored us in the away end a lot of times. I remember I came last year, it was New Year's Day, wasn't it? 1-1 win to yourselves. And I just felt really annoyed coming out of it because I thought if we had a couple of moments where we actually tried to work the ball down a bit and create some openings, and that was all we did. And generally it was just defensive. And I thought if we'd taken the game to you guys a bit more, it might well have been something different on the day. Where I think the own goal was the only thing that separated at the end. I definitely think we're going to come out and play a little bit more. And we're at the same time, though, that we just look really poor defensively at the moment. And I don't think we're full strength of the personnel. My feeling is that we will score, but I'm a bit concerned it could be a consolation more than a genuine mattering goal. But I'm going to carry a little bit of confidence and say we come away with a point and a 1-1 draw, which I would happily take at this stage, with you guys being what I think are one of the superior sides in the league, or should be.
It should be, yeah. Definitely should be. Thank you very much to Ed, of course, for joining us tonight. Greatly appreciate your time, Ed. Absolute superstar. Just plug your show one more time, if you don't mind.
I can do. So our new show is Brewers Babble. We are available on all your podcast platforms, particularly Mixer and Spotify. We record on Thursday evenings for Saturday morning submission, normally about 9 a.m. So something to dig into as you make your trip over to the ground or over to the away game, wherever it is you're going. This week, we've got a couple of fans on to talk through their story of Burton Albion, their own experiences, and then we'll look back on the game from Bristol Rovers very briefly 2 weeks ago, which you don't want to talk about much, and look ahead to the game against yourselves as well as Wickham on Tuesday before we get going into the following week and get finally back into action. Because as I've said before, it feels like we haven't played for a month because this international break just seems to drag. So Brewers Babble, find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Belted. If you have enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you to the 100 people who've watched this episode tonight. Thank you very much for your support, as always. We will be back on Sunday for the post-match reaction. Not too sure on the squad just yet, are we, Ben?
Yeah, not too sure yet.
But there will definitely be at least 4 of us on the podcast on Sunday to delve into the game following Saturday against Burton Albion. But yeah, wonderful to have you all with us. Thank you very much for joining us, and come on, you Whites.